In the aftermath of a national tragedy, the line between public mourning and political messaging can get pretty blurry. Today, we're going to break down the documented visit of Senator Pauline Hanson and MP Barnaby Joyce to the Bondi attack memorial. We'll look at how a moment of intense shared grief also became a platform for a very specific political call to action.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll start with the visit itself, then get into the message of solidarity they brought. We'll see how that morphed into a critique of leadership, which led to a call for action. And finally, we'll look at how the public on the ground actually responded.
This quote from Senator Hanson really captures the mood, doesn't it? That raw shock that so many people felt. This feeling that this kind of thing just shouldn't happen here on our streets. Well, that became the emotional launching pad for everything that followed.
All right, first up, the visit to Bondi. Let's just set the scene at the memorial.
So Hanson and Joyce arrive right in the middle of this sea of flowers and tributes. Their stated mission was pretty clear. They were there to pay their respects, to show support for the community, and, this is a key part, to actually listen to the people who had gathered there.
And out of that scene of mourning, a very distinct message started to emerge. So let's take a look at what exactly they came to say.
You can really see a progression in Hanson's core message here. It kicks off with empathy, right? My heart goes out to everyone here. But it pivots really fast to something much bigger, much more political. This idea that Australians have a fundamental right to feel safe. So this wasn't just about grieving anymore. It was framed as a pledge to, quote, stamp out the hatred in the country.
And that promise to fight hatred? Well, it very quickly found a target. This brings us right to the critique of the nation's leadership, and specifically a contrast between their visit and the Prime Minister's.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. A huge part of their message was drawing a direct contrast with the Prime Minister. His visit was painted as this quiet, early morning thing, almost like he was trying to avoid the cameras and the crowds. But their visit, it was portrayed as the complete opposite, a full-on public engagement where they were, quote, swamped by people. The implication being drawn was pretty obvious. One leader was fearful, the others were fearless.
And Barnaby Joyce just lays it all out there. He frames their very public presence not just as a choice, but as the basic duty of anyone elected to represent people. You have to show up. You have to listen, no matter how hard that conversation might be.
Okay, so we've gone from critique to a call for action. Now we get to the specific policy changes they proposed.
And this call to action wasn't presented as some pre-planned policy announcement. No, the story here is that it was a direct reaction to the anger and the grief in the crowd. The source says that after Hanson spoke with victims' families, the message she got was loud and clear. People wanted more than just sympathy, they wanted actual change.
So what did this change look like? Well, a four-step plan was laid out. First, going after so-called hate preachers. Second, a crackdown on hate speech with actual charges. The third step was definitely the most controversial, re-examining immigration from, quote, certain countries. And finally, making the path to citizenship much longer, extending it to 10 years. If you put it out together, that is a significant proposed overhaul of national security and immigration policy.
And the language used to push for these changes was, well, it was stark. That phrase, rounded up, is deliberately forceful. It's meant to signal a zero-tolerance approach that's a world away from the typical cautious language you hear from politicians on this issue.
So this all leads to the big question, right? How did the public respond to all this? Let's take a look at what the reception was like on the ground.
According to the primary account from the source, the reception was just incredibly positive. The narrator describes Senator Hanson being swamped by supporters, literally unable to move, because so many people, including family members of victims, were trying to get to her to talk.
And this one simple quote, "A man just said, 'I love you,' was really highlighted in the source material. It was used to drive home just how intense, how personal, and how positive that support seemed to be.
But that wasn't the only take on the scene. Another person in the source material, who was watching from a bit further away, described it differently. They didn't see a solid wall of support, they saw a little bit of a mixed reaction. And that adds a really crucial layer of complexity here.
For her part, Senator Hanson has her own theory about why she gets this support. She says it's because she's willing to be outspoken. She believes she's basically acting as a megaphone for a silent chunk of the population, saying the things that a lot of people are thinking but just won't say themselves.
And that's where this leaves us. We have this moment where a site of profound public grief becomes a stage for politics. And the reactions we see from passionate support to something more mixed, it raises this really compelling question. What do these moments truly tell us about the deeper political and social currents running through a nation?